Hey everybody, what's going on? Hexlex here. I've got another Master Duel video for you all. So today we are coming back with Pure Spright once again, although of course the deck has received a huge boost in the form of Spright Sprind. I've of course been playing this card in a lot of decks before this one, some Spright variants, some not, but now we're finally taking this card to a Pure Spright deck and seeing what it does for the deck there. So as you can see, we have jammed not only the new Spright Sprind, but also the other new Spright card, Spright Double Cross. This card is actually insane. I kind of can't believe they printed it. This definitely reads like a custom card, right? The ability to take a monster from either field or graveyard and either stick it under a rank 2 or a link 2 you control is pretty wild. And again, kind of can't believe this card actually exists on top of like the other Spright support that also exists. So definitely gonna nicely slot that into the deck, and you'll see me search for this card a lot with Spright Jet, probably more than I need to, honestly, in these games that are gonna be following the deck profile here. But I was just really wanting to try out the new support and see how much I like it, how good it is, what situations I want it in, just get a better feel for what it's like. And I'm not disappointed. This card's actually just cracked. It's super good. There were some times I searched for it when I probably should have grabbed something else, but I think those were very few and far between. I think a lot of the time it's often right to just grab this card off of Jet if you don't need the starter for extra like extension or what have you. We are also playing two Nimble ANgler, much like our Tri-Spright deck. Want to include those now that Spright Sprind is in the game, because of course we can link into Sprind, dump an Angler, and then summon 2 copies of Nimble Beaver as a result. We can also send the Angler from our hand to the graveyard if we open it with Swap Frog to special Swap Frog, and then again grab a couple of Nimble Beavers here as well. Still playing the little Melffy package of Catty, Pinny, the Melffy the Forest, and the Herald of the Arclight as well. You know, it only takes 2 slots in the main deck and 2 in the extra deck, both of which are fairly wide open, so they definitely slot in very nicely, and still definitely have room for them even after all this new support. We're also playing just a couple of Bystial monsters. I'm just playing Magnamhut and Druiswarm, one of each. I don't think it's a bad idea to play a single Ball Drake either. I wouldn't play many Bystials beyond that though. This is definitely not a deck that's looking to make use of them as extenders for really any kind of combo line or anything like that. We're just kind of playing them as some anti-meta tech here. Of course, we do have the ability to banish some of our own dark monsters like Blue and Jet from the graveyard to summon them, but obviously we're mainly looking to use these to hate light and dark monsters in our opponent's graveyards, as between Tear Element, all the branded decks, Dragon Link, this deck kind of to an extent sometimes. There's a lot of light and dark decks that care about having their light and dark monsters in the graveyard running around right now, and the Bystials are pretty good tech even in decks that wouldn't normally use them as a result. So that's why we have the one Magnamhut, one Druiswarm here. I think otherwise there's not really too much different going on with the deck. Now, I mean, to be fair, what we have going on here is quite a bit different. Particularly Sprind will very much change some of our combo lines, and of course, like I said, we'll be searching Double Cross quite a bit. But beyond that, the core of the deck still plays the same, still tends to put out very similar end boards, and still has the same overall strategy of just setting up a whole bunch of disruption during your turn 1 for the opponent's turn, and then turn 2 we're looking to OTK, usually with the Spright Gamma Burst, makes it very, very easy to do that. So yeah, that's pretty much all there is to it. Not too much different going on. This deck is actually fairly wide open, I've noticed, in terms of like the main deck, so you could include like a lot of different tech slots. I decided to drop in a couple of triple tacks, a single copy of Crossout Designator, of course the single copy you're allowed, and I decided to max out on imperms in addition to including the Bystials. But I mean, as you can see, that's a lot of flex spots, especially for a main deck. I'm used to playing decks that are much tighter for space, so like here off the bat, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then debatably like 6 cards, if you wanted to count the third imperm as a flex spot, that you could potentially change in this main deck very easily. Kind of similar story with the extra deck too, although I think this is a little bit more on lockdown. One thing I am playing here that I haven't been before is the Codebreaker Virus Swordsman. This looks very weird to include in the extra deck, but the reason it's here is to out Bagooska the Terribly Tired Tapir, because this deck, without it, actually does not really have an out to Bagooska at all. So the Swordsman, we're not using its effects at all. It's literally just a link to that's generic and can battle over Bagooska. That's literally the only reason why you play this card. But I do still think it's important to include regardless. So, alright, I think that's going to go ahead and do it as far as like the deck itself. Now let's go ahead and break it down card by card as always, and then we'll look at some gameplay. So we are on 3 Swap Frog, 1 Ronintoadin, 3 Maxx, 2 Nimble ANgler, 3 Nimble Beaver, 1 Melffy Catty, 2 Spright Blue, 3 Spright Jet, 2 Spright Red, 1 Spright Carrot, 1 Melffy Pinny, 3 Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, 1 Bystial Magnamhut, 1 Bystial Druiswarm, 2 Triple Tactics Talent, 2 Call by the Grave, 1 Crossout Designator, 2 Spright Starter, 1 Spright Gamma Burst, 1 Spright Smashers, 3 Infinite Impermanence, and then finally 1 Spright Double Cross. There's our main deck. For the extra deck, we're on 1 Herald of the Arclight, 1 Sky Cavalry Centurea, 1 Melffy of the Forest, 1 Onibimaru Soul Sweeper, 2 Gigatic Spright, 1 Downerd Magician, 1 Divided Arsenal, AA-ZEUS Sky Thunder, 1 IP Masquerena, 1 Codebreaker Virus Swordsman, 2 Spright Elf, 1 Spright Sprind, 1 Knightmare Unicorn, and then finally 1 Mekk-Knight Crusadia Avermax. Alright, there is our list, and now let's look at some gameplay. Okay, I'm going to start off here with a game against tier limits. And it's going to be a pretty standard tier limits build. I mean, it was playing King of the Swamp and Poly, which I still don't think is optimal at all, but other than that, it seemed relatively standard. It seemed like most people have figured that out by this point, that like, hey, King of the Swamp, I don't know why this card got limited, but not that great. So, in any case, this hand it's alright. We're going to start with the level 2 Ronintoadin in this case, and then Spright Blue, so definitely not a bad way to start off. Opponent's going to get to fire off a Havness, but they don't really mill anything relevant, and even if they did, I have a Bystial Magnamhut in my hand to go ahead and take care of that, so we get to just hold the Magnamhut here. Do a special Jet and grab a Double Cross. We already have the Smashers, and I don't really need Jet here, so I don't think it was wrong to necessarily take the Double Cross here. I'm going to overlay for the Gigantic. I should have gone for Sprint here, I think, actually, potentially to send the Angler and especially a couple of Beavers. This might have been a bit early on when I was more used to doing like quote-unquote regular Spright lines, which is kind of what we're seeing here. Yeah, I think we definitely could have done better in this case, but you know, we're still kind of getting used to the deck and how it plays. I think that's the case for a lot of people. Oh no, we're just gonna go for Sprint now. Ah, I see. I should have trusted myself to have played better, but I think it's the case for a lot of people, these Spright variants, because we have such a unique combination of Spright cards that we didn't have in the TCG or OCG. Notably, Sprind and Elf are both at 3 to end in the same game, or in the game at the same time, which is pretty wild, and not something that's happened very often before. So, or not ever before, not just not often, but not ever before. So, again, I think a lot of people were still trying to suss out what the best combo lines are, but I think this one was pretty good, all things considered. We managed to get maximum use out of our Ronintoadin, ending on almost a full board here. A lot of disruption going into our opponent's turn here. Starting off with a Scream, following it up with a Tier Limits Rhinoheart. I'm going to go ahead and use the Catty now, even though I won't be able to banish the Scream or Rhinoheart mills. I definitely still want to establish the not only establish the ability to go into the Herald with Pinny, but I'm also looking to free a monster zone with the Magnamhut here, in case my opponent mills a Fuser, which they do. They not only actually mill a Fuser, but they mill both Agito and Kelbeck, and I suspect my opponent's actually going to end up firing both of them off here, not even realizing I'm going to use Herald of the Arclight in response. So, unfortunately, I won't get to summon the Magnamhut by banishing the Merly, just because I won't have the monster zones to do it, but I think it's fine to give my opponent a single fusion summon here to banish their 10 cards. They're going to try to chain with this Mass Chain Shoe in order to summon a Dark Law, but I'm just going to use Spright Smashers to get rid of their Havness in response. And unfortunately, Spright Smashers doesn't take the monster out of the cost, otherwise I could summon Magnamhut and then stop the Merly here as well. But again, I don't really care if my opponent gets one fusion summon here, that's fine. So as you can see, they did get to mill with Agito and Kelbeck, but all their monsters got banished. Oh, that's so nice to see. So good, so good. So here they will fusion summon the Kiklos. and fire off that effect, as well as Celiac here. I'm going to use Sprind and just bounce the Kitkalos. Just be done with it now, you know, make it nice and easy. They will still get both Surges though, so that is worth noting. However, we do also still have the Herald of the Arclight on our board, which means that they are not going to be able to very easily play around it. They've got a triple attack, but I'm also going to use my Crossout Designator in order to out the triple attack there. I think they weren't even looking to... I think they actually looked to take the last card in our hand, which I think is the worst mode you could have picked there. I assumed they were just going to take control of our monster, but either way, I'm just going to use the Designator to negate it. And we still have as disruption here the IP Masquerena, the Herald of the Arclight, the Spright Double Cross, and the Bystial Magnamhut. So even if our opponent still had moves after that, we still had 4 ways to stop them beyond that. It's wild. And honestly, this game in particular is what really started to make me think, like, you know, I think Spright might be about on the power level of where Tier Limits is at right now. We've definitely seen Tier Limits start to slowly decline from their Tier 0 spot. They're definitely still Tier 1 and, you know, just still the best Tier 1 deck, but this game and a lot of others I've played have definitely convinced me that Spright is a lot closer than I initially realized in terms of power level compared to tiers, and I think a lot of people realize, but we still have some more games to watch, so let's go straight into the next one here. Alright, now we have a game against Bystial Branded. Excuse me, sorry, just stretching there. One of the other big bads in this format. I've been noticing the deck drop off quite a bit, though, in terms of the number, at least the number that I'm personally running into. It kind of seems like as well some of the hype is dying for the deck. You know, when the Bystials and all this other support first dropped, a lot of people were like, oh, Branded is going to be the best deck. Maybe even better than Tier Limit, but I would definitely argue that Spright is better than Branded right now. Anyway, let's see. Opponent's got an Imperm for our Gigantic. That's fine, we still have a Spright Starters, so I don't really care about that. It is actually annoying because now we don't get our Swap Frog engine, and I do actually recommend, if you're holding something like Imperm and Ash Blossom, and your opponent, like, summons a level 2 and then specials a blue, sometimes it feels like it can be hard to know when to use that Imperm / Ash Blossom. Well, one, actually, in this particular scenario, using against that Spright Sprind there would have actually gone a long ways towards making my end board not nearly as great, but I think generally speaking, it's best to use it against that Gigantic, even if they have follow-up plays anyway, because being able to cut off one of their level 2 engines directly from their deck often matters. Like, sometimes they do just have the starter like I had here, but, you know, that can only get Spright monsters, but if you negate the Gigantic, you stop the Swap Frog or whatever random level 2 engine from coming out of the deck, which I think can often be more impactful. So opponent's got a couple of these Bystial effects, but I'm just going to go ahead and negate, pretty much disrupt both of them during the draw phase here. Definitely going to bounce that Saronir and then negate the Druiswarm. Opponent's going to normal summon a Cartesia here. The reason, by the way, I went so hard against those Bystial monsters and just stopping them from hitting the board is because I don't really know what kind of a deck my opponent's playing right now, and those Bystial monsters could be very important to have on board, especially if it's like a Synchro variant of something, you know. But they could also potentially go into a Ranksys, into Beatrice, which is a lot of Tier Limit. A lot of Tier Limit decks are playing Beatrice right now to dump a Fuser or a Miller. You know, I just don't want things on the board in general, so I'm just going to go ahead and stop them. The Druiswarm in particular, I wanted to both negate and destroy with the Spright Red because the effect of Druiswarm to destroy a card on my field only happens when it's sent from the field specifically to the graveyard. So that's why the Saronir I bounced and the Druiswarm I negated and destroyed. Opponent's going to normal summon a Blazing Cartesia and activate the effect, but I'm going to chain the Spright Double Cross here to attach it as a material to my Gigantic Spright. The reason I'm doing that in response to the Cartesia effect and not the summon is because this is a quick effect. If I had done it the other way around, my opponent would have been able to fusion summon, and by using the double cross on this Cartesia, now I severely limit, if not make it impossible for them to fusion summon. They have 3 cards in hand. One of them I know is a Saronir, 2 unknowns. They might have the ability to still fusion summon, but if they do, they're going to have to do so without the Cartesia, and they probably won't be able to. And they, as you can see, they're going to concede afterward because they were in fact not able to fusion summon at all, and I suspect the rest of their hand was entirely dead. And we even still had the Spright Carrot for disruption if they happen to have been holding like a branded fusion, for example. So again, just an example of the power level of disruption that Spright can perform in this meta, and particularly Double Cross we're seeing have some pretty powerful effects on various board states here. We do still have a couple more games to watch. Let's go straight into this next one here. Alright, so for this next duel, we're going to be up against a Tri-Brigade variant. Sorry, I blanked for a second there. We're going to be playing against Scareclaw in particular. Scareclaw Tri-Brigade. Going to be taking the first move yet again here with a very, very good opening hand. This is a hand that definitely has the potential to search up Maxx, which is not something we've done here on the channel in a little while. So I'm going to start by normalling the Swap Frog and baiting a Ronintoadin, then specialing the Spright Blue, and then specialing Jet. Both got an Ash Blossom for the Spright Jet. That is so unbelievably fine. I'm going to call by the Ash Blossom though anyway. But even if we didn't have the call by, that is like so unbelievably fine. I don't care at all if that Jet gets Ash Blossomed. In that regard, maybe I should have just held the call by. Could have been more useful later, but whatever. Just going to grab, of course, Double Cross yet again here. Now I'm going to overlay the Blue and the Jet for a Gigantic. Not going for Sprind just yet because, again, I'm going to search up a Maxx here. Opponent's got a DD Crow in response, question mark, to our Gigantic Spright effect. They really should have waited for me to actually activate the Ronintoadin effect, but, you know, whatever, that's fine. They can DD Crow now. But basically, to search Maxx from the deck, basically the combo line really just involves you opening Swap Frog. Because normally we would use Gigantic to pull out the Swap Frog from our deck and start that engine up, but because we already opened it, and I guess also because our opponent DD Crow'd our Ronintoadin, what we can do instead is we can use Gigantic Spright to search Maxx out of the deck and summon it. And then now we use Swap Frog's effect to bounce it back to our hand. So now we have a Maxx for our opponent's turn. I'm going to link the Gigantic of the swap into the Sprind. Sprind after send an Angler. Angler is going to summon a couple of Beavers, and we're pretty much just off to the races at this point. I'm going to make an IP Masquerena, set a couple of cards, passing back to our opponent, and then during the end phase we're going to drop a Melffy Catty. So not an ideal end board, one that I definitely went out of my way to use the Maxx, which is just going to get eaten by a call by, but you know, we still end on a lot of disruption here, including the ability to make a Herald of the Arclight, as well as the Avermax. So having the Avermax plus Herald set up, I think, is very good against pretty much every single deck. So yeah, I definitely don't mind it here. Unfortunately, because our opponent didn't summon, we weren't able to use the Catty before our opponent started dumping Tri-types in the graveyard, but I am able to respond to the summon of Rescue Cat. I'm going to throw out this Herald of the Arclight. Not that that's even going to really matter, because I'm also just going to flip up my face down Imperm and negate the Rescue Cat effect that way. Opponent's got a triple tack to try to draw two, but I'm going to use my newly made Herald in order to just negate that. Now I know their last card is a Fractal, which they can't summon or do anything with, and they're just going to concede. Yeah, so pretty easy game there. Even if our opponent had managed to put up some more disruption and or extenders, again, we also had the double cross there, but I think that was a time where it was not great to search it because we didn't have an open zone that one of our lake 2s was pointing to. So that double cross was actually dead. That should have been a Spright starter. That is one scenario where I should not have searched the double cross, but I think it's fine ultimately. Let's go ahead and take a look at our last duel here. Okay, so this last game is going to be against a 60-card pile consisting of Punks, Thunder Dragons, Bystials, a Nimble package, and a few Tier Laments as well. Truly a person after my own heart. Now, one thing I'm going to warn you, yeah, you can tell from my opening hand, this is actually, this is a game with Tri-Brigade Spright. I made a very amateur mistake, and I deleted the wrong replay and saved the wrong replay. So, normally I like to have 4 games with the same deck. We're still a little bit short of where I normally like to have the video for time. I wanted one more game. We're just going to watch Tri-Brigade Spright. It's close enough, right? I know, an amateur mistake on my part, but I think it's fine for one video. So anyway, I'm going to Maxx as my opponent's going first. You're going to throw that out during the draw phase. Opponent's got an E-Telly. I'm going to Ash Blossom and the opponent's going to end. it wasn't necessarily smart to Ash Blossom that E-Tele for a couple of reasons. One was that I'd already maxed seed, and as you can see, that gave my opponent an opportunity to pass without summoning without giving me any draws off of seed, which, to be fair, my hand's already good enough, but ideally I would have liked to have had some more cards drawn. And I think the other reason, because my opponent is on a 60 card deck, it would have been very easy for my opponent to follow up with a grass there. Like, I know a lot of the time playing a 60 card deck, have baited an Ash Blossom with an E-Tele before activating grass, so thankfully in this case my opponent didn't really have anything. But I figured, I guess even if they did have grass, then I just get a bunch of draws off of Maxx, so I guess ultimately it was fine either way, right? So just start by normal summoning a Beaver. Want to grab an Angler when you're normal summoning a Beaver if you're playing 2 Angler, that way you can go into a Sprind and then still dump your second Angler and summon your second and third Nimble Beaver. If you normal Nimble Beaver, summon a second Nimble Beaver, then your Sprind doesn't only summons 1 Beaver if you dump an Angler from there. So gonna go into a Gigantic Spright next, activating the Gigantic Spright's effect in order to summon out that Spright Blue. Blue F is gonna grab a Jet. I thought we were still playing Pure Spright for a second, and it's like, that's right, we're playing the Tri-Brigade variant. Although, to be fair, we didn't even really end up using any of the Tri-Brigade stuff here. This is just a classic going second Gamma Burst OTK, so maybe it's more fine for me to show this, who knows. But yeah, that's gonna go ahead and do it for these games. I hope you all enjoyed watching them. I had a blast playing this deck. I love Spright. It might be my favorite, like, Master Duel deck, honestly. Like, even above Tri-Brigade. I mean, obviously I like, you know, both and playing both engines in the same deck, but, like, I don't know. I've been thinking that in recent weeks. I'm like, I think I actually like Spright more than Tri-Brigade. Spright's a cool deck with a cool aesthetic, and I really like how it plays. It's obviously very strong as well, and yeah, might be my new favorite Master Duel deck. But in any case, let's go ahead and just move now to our outro. Alright everybody, thank you so much for watching all the way to the very end of the video like this. That means a whole lot to me, not just personally, but it's also a great way of supporting the channel as well. If you're interested in supporting the channel in other means, you can of course feel free to comment and or subscribe right here on YouTube. I'm always looking to the comments section. You guys leave some pretty awesome feedback as far as like constructive criticism goes when it comes to deck building, gameplay, channel content, all that stuff. So feel free to leave your opinion down there. I will be sure to take a look at that there. And then subscribing is going to be the best way to get notifications of when these videos drop. That does happen every day, by the way, so if you're looking for daily Master Duel content, you've come to the right place. And there are more places where you can get some daily Master Duel content. If you check out the description below, follow the top link over to my Patreon page. There for just $5 a month, which is as much as you pay for a booster pack. You'll find a lot more value than a pack full of filler over there. We've got some previews for content upcoming here on the channel. We've got some exclusive games that are only posted over on Patreon over there. We've got some Q&As, and then you can also have your name featured in this lovely credit sequence where I thank all of the people who are helping contribute over there on Patreon. It's a huge support to the channel, and it really means a lot as well. So thank you everyone who is donating that is featured here on screen. And again, you know, it's not just a pure donation. You do get some more daily Master Duel content over there just for being a part of the Patreon. But I think that's about all the time that I have for today's video. Once again, I just want to thank you so very much for sticking all the way to the end of the video. Again, it just means a lot, as I do put a decent amount of work into getting these videos out every single day. But that's about all the time that I've got for now. So without further ado, this is Xlex. I'm signing out, and I hope you have a fantastic day.